There are moments when everything goes quiet around you, yet inside your mind, the noise refuses to stop. You lie in bed staring at the ceiling, your body exhausted but your thoughts wide awake, replaying conversations, imagining outcomes, and questioning every decision you've ever made. It feels like your mind has become a place you can't escape from, even though all you want is a moment of peace. You tell yourself to stop thinking, but the thoughts only grow louder, faster, heavier. Overthinking often disguises itself as awareness, as if constantly analyzing everything will somehow protect you from pain or mistakes. But in reality, it slowly drains you. You revisit the past, thinking maybe if you go over it one more time, you'll find a different ending. You question things you said, things you didn't say, and things that might never even matter again. Yet no matter how much you think, nothing changes, except your peace quietly slipping away. It's exhausting to carry a mind that never rests. You can feel it in your chest, a tightness that doesn't leave, a weight that grows heavier with every thought. Even small decisions become overwhelming because your mind turns them into something bigger than they are. You think about every possible outcome, every risk, every what if, until you're paralyzed, unable to move forward. Sometimes the hardest part is that no one else can see it. On the outside, you may look calm, maybe even smiling, but inside, you're fighting a constant storm. Your thoughts don't give you a break. They follow you into your quiet moments, into your prayers, into your attempts to rest. And slowly, without realizing it, your heart starts to feel distant, tired, and overwhelmed. Overthinking makes you believe that control comes from thinking more, but the truth is, it often comes from letting go. Not every thought deserves your attention. Not every worry deserves your energy. Yet when you're caught in that cycle, it feels impossible to stop. You feel like if you don't think about it, something will go wrong, as if your thoughts are the only thing holding everything together. But deep down, your mind is not searching for more thoughts, it's searching for peace. It's searching for stillness, for a moment where everything just slows down. The constant thinking is not strength, it's a sign that your heart is overwhelmed, that your soul is tired from carrying too much for too long. You were never meant to hold the weight of every possible outcome. There's a difference between reflection and overthinking. Reflection helps you grow, but overthinking keeps you stuck. It traps you in a loop where nothing moves forward. You stay in the same place mentally, even as time passes around you. And that's what makes it so heavy. It feels like you're doing something, but in reality, you're just going in circles. Your mind keeps searching for certainty in a world that was never meant to be fully controlled. That's why it feels endless. There will always be another possibility, another fear, another scenario to imagine. And if you keep chasing those thoughts, you'll never find rest. Because peace doesn't come from solving every what if. It comes from accepting that not everything needs to be solved. The truth is, your mind is tired because it has been trying to carry what your heart was meant to surrender. You've been holding on to worries that were never yours to control. And in doing so, you've been unintentionally stealing your own peace, moment by moment, thought by thought. Not because you're weak, but because you've been trying too hard to protect yourself. So if you feel overwhelmed right now, if your thoughts won't slow down, understand this, it's not because you're broken. It's because you've been thinking beyond what your heart can handle. And maybe, just maybe, the peace you're searching for isn't in thinking more, but in learning to finally let go. Overthinking doesn't come from nowhere. It has roots, and those roots are often deeply emotional. One of the biggest reasons is fear of the future. You start imagining what could go wrong, what might happen, what if things don't work out the way you hope. Your mind tries to prepare you for every possible scenario, thinking it's protecting you, but instead it traps you in a loop of endless uncertainty. The future becomes something heavy, something intimidating, even though it hasn't even arrived yet. At the same time, your past pulls you backward. You replay moments again and again, wishing you had said something differently, acted differently, chosen differently. You analyze every detail, hoping that by revisiting it, you might somehow fix it. But the past is already written. No amount of thinking can rewrite what has already happened. Yet your mind keeps returning to it, as if there is still something left to change. There is also a deep need for control hidden inside overthinking. You want clarity, certainty, and reassurance that everything will be okay. So your mind tries to calculate every outcome, predict every possibility, and avoid every risk. It feels safer to think more, to plan more, to analyze more. But the more you try to control everything, the more overwhelmed you become, because life was never meant to be fully controlled by you. You keep replaying situations, not because you enjoy it, but because a part of you is searching for peace. You go over conversations, decisions, and moments, hoping that maybe this time, the ending will feel different. Maybe this time, it won't hurt as much. But each replay only deepens the feeling, because instead of healing, you are reopening the same wound again and again. Overthinking creates an illusion that you are solving something. It tricks you into believing that if you just think a little more, you'll finally reach a conclusion, a sense of closure, a moment of relief. But that relief rarely comes. Instead, your thoughts multiply. One question leads to another, one worry leads to 10 more, until your mind feels crowded and heavy. In reality, overthinking doesn't solve your problems. It amplifies them. A small concern turns into a big fear. A simple mistake turns into a deep regret. A minor uncertainty becomes something overwhelming. Your mind magnifies everything, making it feel bigger than it actually is. And slowly, what started as a thought becomes anxiety that sits heavily in your chest. The more you overthink, the more disconnected you feel from the present moment. You're either stuck in what has already happened or lost in what might happen. Rarely are you fully present in what is happening right now. And that absence from the present is where peace begins to fade, because peace can only be felt in the moment you are living in. There is also a quiet pressure within you, a feeling that you must figure everything out on your own. You feel responsible for making everything right, avoiding every mistake, and ensuring every outcome is perfect. But this pressure is unrealistic, and it slowly exhausts you. You were never meant to carry that level of responsibility alone. Deep down, overthinking is often a sign of a heart that is struggling to trust. Not because you don't believe, but because you are overwhelmed. You are trying to hold onto everything so tightly, afraid that if you let go, things might fall apart. But in that tight grip, you lose your peace, your calm, and your sense of ease. The truth is, you are trying to control what only Allah controls. The future is not in your hands. The outcomes are not in your hands. Even the hearts of people are not in your control. And when you try to take on that role, your mind becomes overwhelmed because it is carrying something far beyond its capacity. Overthinking is not a sign that you are strong or prepared. It is a sign that you are tired of carrying what was never yours to carry. And the more you recognize this, the more you begin to understand that peace does not come from figuring everything out, but from trusting that not everything needs to be figured out by you. When you slowly begin to accept that some things are beyond your control, something inside you starts to soften. The constant pressure begins to ease. Your thoughts may not disappear instantly, but they lose their intensity. Because deep down, your heart starts to realize that it doesn't have to fight every battle alone. And maybe that is where your healing begins, not in thinking more, but in trusting more. Not in controlling everything, but in learning to release what was never yours to control in the first place. There is something inside every human being that craves certainty. You want to know what will happen next, how things will turn out, and whether your decisions will lead to something good or something painful. It feels uncomfortable not knowing, as if uncertainty itself is something to fear. So your mind starts working overtime, trying to fill in the gaps, trying to predict the future before it arrives, hoping that certainty will bring you peace. But life was never designed to give you complete certainty. It was created with unknowns, with tests, with moments where you have to walk forward without seeing the full path ahead. That uncertainty is not a flaw in life, it is part of its purpose. It is what allows trust to exist. Because if everything were clear, if every outcome were known, there would be no need to rely on anything beyond yourself. Overthinking begins when you struggle to accept that uncertainty. Your mind tries to take control, to map out every possibility, to prepare for every outcome. You think that if you can just understand everything in advance, you will avoid pain, avoid mistakes, avoid disappointment. But instead of giving you control, it creates pressure. The more you try to control, the more you realize how much is actually out of your hands. This is where the illusion begins. Overthinking makes you feel like you are in control, like your thoughts are managing your life. But in reality, you are only exhausting yourself. You are not controlling the future, you are only reacting to imagined versions of it. Your mind is solving problems that don't even exist yet, fighting battles that may never come. At its core, overthinking is often a reflection of a deeper struggle with trust. Not a complete lack of faith, but a difficulty in fully letting go. You believe, but you still feel the need to hold everything together yourself. You carry your worries as if they depend entirely on you, as if the outcome of your life rests only in your hands. Yet there is a truth that gently calls you back every time your mind runs too far. You plan, but Allah is the best of planners. There are things happening beyond your understanding, beyond your vision, beyond your control. What feels uncertain to you is already known to Him. What feels confusing to you is already perfectly arranged. Think about how many times you worried about something that never actually happened. Nights you spent overthinking, imagining the worst, preparing yourself for outcomes that never came. All that energy, all that fear, all that mental exhaustion, only for things to turn out differently, sometimes even better than you expected. Those moments are quiet reminders that your mind does not always see the full picture. Your thoughts often assume the worst because they are trying to protect you. But Allah's plan is not based on fear, it is based on wisdom, mercy, and knowledge that goes far beyond what you can comprehend. When you try to control everything, you limit yourself to your own understanding. But when you trust, you open your heart to something greater than your own perspective. Letting go does not mean you stop trying. It does not mean you stop planning or making decisions. It means you do your part, and then you release the outcome. It means you take a step forward without needing to see the entire path. It means you accept that uncertainty is not something to fear, but something to trust through. Overthinking tells you that you must figure everything out before you move. Tawakkul teaches you that you can move forward even when you don't have all the answers. Overthinking fills your heart with pressure, while trust slowly fills it with calm. Both cannot fully exist in the same space at the same time. When you begin to understand this, something shifts inside you. The need to control every detail starts to loosen. You still think, you still plan, but you no longer carry the weight of outcomes as if they depend entirely on you. You begin to breathe a little easier, because you realize that you are not alone in managing your life. And maybe that is the peace you have been searching for all along, not certainty about everything, but trust in the one who already knows everything. Because when you truly accept that, the illusion of control begins to fade, and in its place, a quiet sense of relief starts to grow. There is a calm that begins to settle in your heart when you truly realize that Allah is in control of everything, even the things you cannot see, the things you cannot understand, and the things you are silently worrying about. Nothing is hidden from Him. Not your thoughts, not your fears, not the quiet struggles you don't share with anyone. Every emotion that passes through your heart is already known, already understood, already seen. Sometimes you feel like you are carrying everything alone, as if your problems are yours to solve entirely by yourself. Your mind keeps turning, trying to find answers, trying to fix things, trying to prepare for what might happen next. But in that state, you forget a powerful truth: nothing escapes Allah's knowledge. What you are thinking about right now, what is keeping you awake at night, what is weighing heavily on your chest, it is all already known to Him in complete detail. There is something deeply comforting in knowing that the one who created your heart also understands it perfectly. He knows why you feel the way you feel. He knows the reasons behind your overthinking, the fears behind your worries, and the pain behind your silence. You don't have to explain everything for Him to understand, because He already does. When your thoughts begin to spiral, it helps to pause and remind yourself that what you are worrying about is not new information to Allah. The situation you are trying to control, the outcome you are afraid of, the uncertainty that is making you anxious, it is all already within His knowledge and His plan. Nothing is unfolding randomly. Nothing is slipping through the cracks. The one you're worrying about is already handled by Allah. That situation you keep replaying, that future you are trying to predict, that fear you are trying to avoid, it is not in your hands to manage completely. And that is not something to fear, but something to find relief in. Because His control is not limited like yours. His knowledge is not incomplete like yours. His plan is not uncertain like yours. You may not see what is coming next, but He does. You may not understand why things are happening the way they are, but He has wisdom behind every moment. Even delays, even difficulties, even the things that don't go the way you expected, they are not without purpose. They are part of a plan that is far greater than what your mind can fully grasp. There is a gentle peace that comes when you stop trying to carry everything on your own. When you slowly begin to release your worries, not because they are small, but because you trust that they are in the care of the one who is greater than them. It doesn't mean your problems disappear instantly, but your relationship with them begins to change. Instead of feeling like you are facing everything alone, you begin to feel supported. You begin to feel that you are not navigating life by yourself. Even in your quietest moments, even when no one else understands, you are not alone in your situation. Allah is with you, aware of you, and closer to you than you realize. Your heart was never meant to carry the burden of controlling every outcome. It was meant to find peace in knowing that there is a higher control, a perfect control, that never fails. When you hold on to that truth, your thoughts begin to soften. The urgency to figure everything out starts to fade, replaced by a quiet trust. You may still have questions. You may still feel uncertain at times. But deep inside, there is a growing sense of reassurance that you are being taken care of. That your story is not forgotten. That your struggles are not unseen. And that every single detail of your life is already within the knowledge and control of Allah. And maybe that is what your heart needs to hear right now, that you don't have to carry everything alone anymore. That the weight you've been holding can be shared, can be released, can be placed in the hands of the one who never loses control of anything. So when your mind begins to race again, gently remind yourself of this truth: you are not alone in your situation, and you never were. The one who knows what is hidden in your heart is already taking care of what is ahead of you, even before you reach it. There is a clear difference between a mind that is overthinking and a heart that is practicing tawakkul, even if both are facing the exact same situation. On the surface, nothing may look different. The problem is still there, the uncertainty is still there, and the outcome is still unknown. But inside, the experience is completely different. One is filled with tension, while the other is filled with quiet trust. Overthinking is rooted in fear. It constantly asks, what if something goes wrong? It searches for worst-case scenarios and holds onto them as if they are certain. It creates doubt, not only about the situation, but sometimes even about yourself. You begin to question your decisions, your abilities, and your future. And as those thoughts build up, they turn into stress that sits heavily in your chest and refuses to leave. Tawakkul, on the other hand, is rooted in trust. It doesn't deny the problem, and it doesn't ignore reality. Instead, it acknowledges the situation while placing full reliance on Allah. It says, I will do what I can, and I trust that Allah will handle what I cannot. There is a sense of surrender in it, not a surrender of effort, but a surrender of outcomes. You act, but you don't carry the burden of controlling the result. Imagine two people facing the same difficulty. Both are dealing with uncertainty, both are unsure of what will happen next. One of them begins to panic. Their mind races, imagining every possible negative outcome. They lose sleep, they feel overwhelmed, and their thoughts consume them. The situation becomes heavier, not just because of what it is, but because of how they are carrying it. The other person also feels the weight of the situation, but they respond differently. They take the necessary steps, they make dua, they try their best, and then they let go of what they cannot control. Their heart remains calmer, even if the situation itself hasn't changed. They still care, they still hope, but they are not drowning in their thoughts. This is the difference between overthinking and tawakkul. One multiplies the problem inside your mind, while the other reduces the emotional weight of it. One keeps you stuck in fear, while the other allows you to move forward with trust. Both are living the same reality, but their inner worlds are completely different. Overthinking convinces you that everything depends on you. Tawakkul reminds you that everything ultimately depends on Allah. Overthinking makes you feel alone in your struggle, as if you have to figure everything out by yourself. Tawakkul gently reminds you that you are never alone, that there is a higher wisdom guiding what you cannot see. There is also a deep sense of peace that comes with tawakkul. Not because your problems disappear instantly, but because your heart is no longer fighting to control everything. You begin to accept that some things are beyond you, and instead of resisting that reality, you find comfort in it. You realize that letting go is not weakness, it is relief. Tawakkul doesn't remove problems, it removes panic. The situation may remain the same, but the chaos inside you begins to settle. Your thoughts slow down, your heart softens, and your mind no longer feels like it is constantly under pressure. You still take action, but you do it with a sense of calm instead of fear. When you live in overthinking, even small problems feel overwhelming. But when you live with tawakkul, even big problems feel manageable. Because you are no longer carrying them alone. You are trusting that whatever happens, there is a plan behind it, even if you don't fully understand it yet. And maybe that is the shift your heart needs, to move from trying to control everything, to trusting the one who already controls everything. To move from fear to faith, from stress to surrender, from overthinking to tawakkul. Because in that shift, you don't just change how you think, you change how you feel, how you cope, and how you experience life itself. There is a quiet trap that your mind falls into without you even realizing it, and it often begins with two simple words, what if? What if I fail? What if things go wrong? What if this decision ruins everything? These thoughts seem small at first, almost harmless, but they slowly grow into something much heavier. They pull you out of the present moment and place you into imagined futures that haven't happened and may never happen. Your mind starts creating scenarios, building entire stories based on fear. In those moments, everything feels real. The failure feels real, the disappointment feels real, the pain feels real. Your heart reacts as if those things are already happening, even though they exist only in your imagination. And that is where the exhaustion begins, because you are emotionally experiencing things that are not even part of your reality. The truth is, most of these what-ifs never actually happen. Think about your past. How many times did you worry about something endlessly, only for it to turn out differently? Sometimes it didn't happen at all. Sometimes it wasn't as bad as you imagined. And sometimes, it even led to something better. Yet in the moment of overthinking, your mind rarely considers those possibilities. It leans toward fear, because it is trying to protect you. But instead of protecting you, it traps you. It keeps you stuck in a loop where you are constantly preparing for problems that don't exist. You begin to live in a future that hasn't arrived, carrying emotions that don't belong to your present. And slowly, this takes away your ability to feel calm, to feel grounded, to feel at peace with where you are right now. You are suffering more in your imagination than in reality. That is the hidden weight of overthinking. Your actual situation might be manageable, but your thoughts make it feel overwhelming. The imagined outcomes feel heavier than the real ones, and your heart struggles to separate what is real from what is only feared. What if thinking also creates hesitation? It makes you doubt your steps, delay your decisions, and question your path. You become afraid to move forward, not because of what is happening, but because of what might happen. And in that fear, you limit yourself. You hold yourself back from growth, from opportunities, and from moments that could have brought you peace. But there is a way to gently shift this pattern. It does not mean your thoughts will disappear instantly, but it changes how you respond to them. Instead of feeding every "what if," you begin to replace it with something stronger, something more grounding. When your mind says, "What if things go wrong?" you remind yourself, "Allah will take care." This shift is not just about words, it is about belief. It is about reminding your heart that whatever lies ahead is already within Allah's knowledge and control. It is about trusting that even if something does not go the way you expect, there is still a plan, still a purpose, still a wisdom behind it. When you replace "what if" with trust, something begins to soften inside you. The fear doesn't disappear instantly, but it loses its intensity. Your thoughts no longer spiral in the same way, because they are being redirected towards something more certain than your imagination, your trust in Allah. You begin to understand that not every thought deserves your attention. Not every fear deserves your energy. Some thoughts are just passing clouds, and you don't have to follow them wherever they go. You can let them pass, gently bringing your focus back to what is real, to what is present, to what is within your control. And in that practice, your heart starts to feel lighter. The constant pressure begins to ease. You are no longer chasing every possible future, trying to prepare for everything at once. Instead, you are standing where you are, doing what you can, and trusting what you cannot control. Maybe the freedom you are searching for is not in eliminating every "what if," but in learning not to believe every one of them. Because when you stop feeding those thoughts and start replacing them with trust, you slowly step out of the trap that has been holding your peace for so long. There are moments in life when everything feels closed, when every path seems blocked, and no matter how much you think, you cannot find a solution. Your mind keeps searching for a way out, but all it sees are walls. In those moments, your heart begins to feel heavy, and overthinking takes over, trying to create answers where none appear. But it is exactly in these moments that the stories of true trust remind you of a reality far beyond what you can see. Think about the moment when Prophet Ibrahim, a.s., was thrown into the fire. It was not a small test. It was a situation where, from every human perspective, there was no escape. The fire was blazing, the people around him had already decided his fate, and there was no visible way he could survive. Anyone witnessing that moment would have believed it was the end. But what made that moment extraordinary was not the absence of danger, it was the presence of complete trust in Allah. Ibrahim, a.s., did not rely on what he could see. He did not allow fear to take over his heart. Even when everything around him pointed toward destruction, his heart remained firm, knowing that Allah's power is greater than any situation. And then, something happened that no mind could have predicted. Allah commanded the fire to become cool and safe. The very thing that was meant to harm him became a means of protection. The situation did not change because of human effort or planning, it changed because Allah willed it to change. This is the reality that overthinking often makes you forget. When you are trapped in your thoughts, you only see what is in front of you. You measure your situation based on your own understanding, your own limits, your own ability to fix things. And when you cannot find a solution within that limited frame, you begin to feel hopeless. But your life is not limited to what you can see. There are outcomes, solutions, and paths that exist beyond your imagination. Just because you cannot find a way does not mean there is no way. It only means that the solution is not in your hands, it is in Allah's hands. When there was no way out, Allah made a way. Not a small way, not a predictable way, but a way that completely changed the reality of the situation. And this is how His help often comes. Not always in the way you expect, not always at the time you want, but in the way that is best for you, even if you cannot understand it immediately. Sometimes you wait, and nothing seems to change. Your mind starts to question, your heart starts to feel restless, and overthinking grows stronger. But what you do not see is what Allah is preparing behind the scenes. His help is not absent, it is unfolding in ways you cannot yet perceive. Allah's help often comes when you least expect it. At a moment when you feel like you have reached your limit, when you feel like there is nothing left you can do, when you feel completely surrounded, that is when relief can come from a place you never imagined. And when it does, you realize that everything was always under His control. Your situation is not bigger than Allah's power. No matter how complicated it feels, no matter how heavy it seems, no matter how impossible it looks, there is nothing beyond His. The same Allah who protected Ibrahim, a.s., in the fire is fully capable of taking care of what you are facing right now. When this truth settles in your heart, something begins to change. Your problems may still exist, but they no longer feel overwhelming in the same way. Your thoughts may still come, but they lose their intensity. Because deep inside, you begin to understand that you are not limited to your own ability to fix things. Trust does not mean you stop feeling fear. It means you do not let that fear control you. It means you acknowledge the difficulty, but you place your reliance on something greater than it. It means you take your steps, but you leave the outcome in the hands of the one who controls everything. So when your mind tells you there is no way, gently remind yourself of this truth. Just because you cannot see a way does not mean there isn't one. Because the one who turned fire into safety is still over every situation you are facing. And maybe this is the reminder your heart needs right now, that even in moments that feel impossible, you are never without hope. Because when Allah is in control, there is always a way, even if you cannot see it yet. Overthinking does not just stay in your mind, it slowly begins to affect every part of you. What starts as a few extra thoughts turns into a constant state of tension. Your mind rarely gets a break, and because of that, your body and emotions begin to feel the weight. You may not notice it immediately, but over time, it starts to show in ways that are difficult to ignore. One of the first things it brings is anxiety. Your thoughts move faster than your ability to process them, jumping from one fear to another, from one what if to the next. Your heart starts to feel restless, your chest feels tight, and even when nothing is happening around you, it feels like something is wrong. That constant alertness drains you, because your mind is always preparing for something that may never come. Then comes sleeplessness. You lie down, hoping to rest, but your mind refuses to slow down. The silence of the night only makes your thoughts louder. You replay conversations, imagine future scenarios, and analyze things that don't need to be analyzed. Hours pass, and instead of resting, you feel even more exhausted. Your body is tired, but your mind keeps running, and that disconnect leaves you feeling drained the next day. Over time, this turns into emotional burnout. It feels like you have nothing left to give, not because you've done too much physically, but because you've been carrying too much mentally. Every small situation feels heavier than it should, every decision feels overwhelming, and even simple tasks start to feel exhausting. Your energy fades, your patience becomes thinner, and your heart begins to feel worn out. What makes it even harder is that much of this struggle is invisible. People may not see what you are going through internally. They see you functioning, talking, maybe even smiling, but they don't see the constant battle happening inside your mind. And because of that, you carry it quietly, without fully expressing how heavy it has become. You are mentally fighting battles that don't exist. That is the hidden damage of overthinking. Your mind creates problems, replays situations, and imagines outcomes, and your heart reacts to all of it as if it is real. You feel the stress, the fear, and the pressure, even though none of it is actually happening in that moment. This constant mental activity also distances you from peace. Even in moments where you could feel calm, your thoughts pull you away. You struggle to stay present, because your mind is either stuck in the past or lost in the future. And without realizing it, you miss the moments of ease that are right in front of you. Your heart was not created to carry this much stress. It was not designed to hold every possible outcome, every imagined scenario, and every fear all at once. It was created to trust, to feel, to connect, not to constantly struggle under the weight of endless thoughts. When you overload your mind like this, you begin to feel disconnected from yourself. You lose that sense of calm, that sense of balance. Even things that once felt simple start to feel complicated. And slowly, your inner world becomes a place of tension instead of peace. But recognizing this is important, because once you see how overthinking is affecting you, you begin to understand that it is not something harmless, it is something that needs to be gently addressed. Not by forcing your thoughts to stop, but by learning to step back from them, to not give them all your energy. You deserve a mind that rests. You deserve moments where your heart feels light, where your thoughts are not overwhelming you, where you are not constantly bracing yourself for something that hasn't happened. And that begins with understanding that you don't have to fight every thought that comes into your mind. Sometimes, the most powerful step is simply realizing that you have been carrying too much for too long. And from that awareness, you can begin to slowly release what was never meant to stay with you in the first place. Breaking free from overthinking does not require a sudden, dramatic change. It begins with small, consistent actions that gently train your mind to slow down. When your thoughts feel overwhelming, the goal is not to fight them aggressively, but to redirect your focus towards something grounding, something that brings calm back into your heart. One of the most powerful ways to do this is through dhikr. Repeating simple words like Subhanallah, Alhamdulillah and Allahu Akbar may seem small, but their impact is deep. These words shift your attention away from endless thoughts and reconnect you with something greater than your worries. As your tongue moves with remembrance, your heart begins to soften, and your mind gradually becomes quieter. Praying on time also plays a significant role in calming overthinking. Salah is not just an obligation, it is a pause, a reset, a moment where you step away from everything that is overwhelming you. When you stand in prayer, you are no longer trapped in your thoughts. You are standing before Allah, placing your worries aside, even if just for a few minutes. And in those moments, your heart finds relief. Another important step is learning to limit negative thoughts. This does not mean you will never have them, but it means you do not give them unlimited space in your mind. When a thought begins to spiral, gently interrupt it. Remind yourself that not every thought deserves your attention. Some thoughts are just noise, and the more you engage with them, the louder they become. Focusing on the present moment is also essential. Overthinking pulls you into the past or pushes you into the future, but peace exists in the present. Bring your attention back to where you are right now. Notice your surroundings, your breathing, the small details of the moment. When you ground yourself in the present, your mind has less room to wander into unnecessary sinter. These steps may seem simple, but their power lies in consistency. Small habits, when practiced daily, begin to reshape how your mind responds to stress. You may not notice a change overnight, but slowly, your thoughts will feel less intense, your reactions will become calmer, and your heart will begin to feel lighter. It is important to understand that you do not need to solve everything to feel peace. Overthinking often convinces you that peace will only come once every problem is figured out. But that is not how peace works. Peace is not the result of having all the answers, it is the result of knowing where to place your trust. Peace comes from remembering Allah, not from solving everything. When your heart is connected to Him, your worries lose their weight. Your problems may still exist, but they no longer control your inner state. You begin to feel a sense of calm that does not depend on circumstances. There will still be moments when your mind drifts back into overthinking. That is part of being human, but each time it happens, you now have a way back. Through Dhikr, through prayer, through awareness, you can gently return to a place of calm instead of getting lost in the storm of your thoughts. This journey is not about perfection. It is about practice. It is about choosing, again and again, to shift your focus from what overwhelms you to what grounds you. And with time, those small choices begin to transform your inner world. You are not meant to live in constant mental noise. You are meant to experience moments of stillness, clarity, and peace. And those moments begin with simple steps that bring you closer to Allah and further away from the weight of overthinking. Your mind was never meant to stay empty for long. When there is space within it, something will always come to fill it. If that space is not intentionally filled with something calming and meaningful, it naturally becomes occupied by worry, fear, and endless thoughts. This is why overthinking often feels uncontrollable, because the mind, when left unguided, drifts toward what unsettles it. Overthinking thrives in that emptiness. The quieter your surroundings become, the louder your thoughts grow. Without something to anchor your attention, your mind begins to wander into the past, replaying moments, or into the future, imagining outcomes. And before you realize it, you are caught in a cycle that feels difficult to break. But this is where Dhikr becomes powerful. It does not just occupy your tongue, it gently fills your mind and heart with something that brings peace instead of pressure. When you repeat the name of Allah, you are not just saying words, you are redirecting your inner world. You are giving your thoughts a place to rest. An empty mind gets filled with worry, but a heart engaged in Dhikr gets filled with calm. The same space that once held anxious thoughts begins to carry remembrance instead. And slowly, that shift changes how you feel inside. The intensity of overthinking decreases, not because your problems disappeared, but because your focus has changed. Every time you catch yourself overthinking, you have a choice. You can follow the thought deeper into anxiety, or you can gently interrupt it. It does not require force. Even a soft, quiet, Ya Allah, is enough to begin that shift. That one moment of remembrance can break the chain of thoughts that was pulling you down. Every time you overthink, replace it with Ya Allah. This is not just a phrase, it is a practice. A small, consistent act that retrains your mind. The more you do it, the more natural it becomes. Over time, your first response to stress is no longer overthinking, but turning back to Allah. This does not mean your mind will never wander again. Thoughts will still come, worries will still appear. But they will not stay as long, and they will not feel as heavy. Because now, you have something stronger to replace them with, something that brings ease instead of tension. Dhikr also creates a sense of closeness. When you remember Allah, you are reminded that you are not alone in what you are facing. That awareness itself brings comfort. It softens the fear, reduces the pressure, and gives your heart a sense of that overthinking can never provide. Your heart finds rest in the remembrance of Allah. This is not just a concept, it is something you begin to feel with practice. A quiet of peace that settles within you, even when life around you is uncertain. A calm that does not depend on everything being perfect, but on your connection with Allah. When you replace your thoughts with Dhikr, you are not escaping reality. You are grounding yourself in something deeper than your thoughts. You are stepping out of the noise and into stillness. And in that stillness, your heart begins to heal from the constant strain of overthinking. So the next time your mind starts to spiral, do not try to silence it completely. Simply guide it, bring it back, gently, patiently, to remembrance. Because the goal is not to have no thoughts at all, the goal is to fill your mind with what brings peace instead of what takes it away. And with time, you will notice something beautiful. The same mind that once overwhelmed you will begin to feel calmer. The same heart that once felt heavy will begin to feel lighter. All because you chose, moment by moment, to replace worry with remembrance. There comes a point where you begin to realize how exhausting it is to carry everything on your own. You try to think through every possibility, prepare for every outcome, and control every detail of your life. At first, it feels responsible, like you are doing what you need to do to stay safe and secure. But slowly, that effort turns into pressure, and that pressure turns into exhaustion. You have tried controlling everything, and it only made you tired. Not because you were weak, but because you were never meant to carry that kind of weight in the first place. There are things in life that are simply beyond your control, no matter how much you think about them, plan for them, or worry over them. Overthinking convinces you that if you just think a little more, you will find peace. But the opposite often happens. The more you try to control, the more restless you feel. Because deep down, your heart knows that some are not in your hands. And trying to force control over them only creates tension within you. Letting go does not mean giving up. It does not mean you stop caring or stop trying. It means you recognize your limits. It means you do what you can, and then you release what you cannot carry. It is a shift from holding everything tightly to placing it where it truly belongs. There is a quiet of relief that comes when you stop trying to manage everything. When you accept that not every question needs an immediate answer, not every outcome needs to be predicted, and not every situation needs to be solved by you. That acceptance softens something inside you. Let go of what you can't control. Not all at once, not perfectly, but gradually. Each time you notice yourself holding onto something too tightly, remind yourself that it is okay to release it. That you does not need to carry every unknown. Allah didn't ask you to figure everything out. He asked you to trust Him. This is where true ease begins. When you understand that your role is not to control every detail, but to trust the one who already has complete control over everything. Trust does not mean you will never feel uncertain. It means that even in uncertainty, you choose not to panic. It means you accept that you do not have all the answers, but you are at peace knowing that Allah does. And that knowledge alone brings a different kind of calm. When you let go, you are not losing control, you are returning it to where it belongs. And in doing so, you free your heart from a burden it was never meant to carry. You create space for peace, for clarity, for rest. There is strength in surrender. Not the kind that comes from force, but the kind that comes from faith. A quiet strength that allows you to move through life without being overwhelmed by every unknown. So take a deep breath, and allow yourself to loosen your grip on what is weighing you down. You have done your part. Now let your heart rest in trust. Because you were never meant to carry everything alone, and you were never asked to. And in that moment of letting go, you may begin to feel something you have been searching for all along, a sense of peace that does not come from having control, but from knowing who is truly in control. As this moment comes to a close, allow everything to slow down. Let your thoughts settle, even if just a little. You do not need to carry every worry right now. You do not need to solve everything tonight. Just pause, breathe, and let your heart be present. You have been thinking so much, carrying so much, trying so hard to make sense of everything. And it is okay to feel tired. It is okay to admit that your mind needs rest. Because sometimes, the most healing thing you can do is to stop trying to control everything and simply return to Allah. Raise your hands, even if it is just within your heart, and let these words come from a place of sincerity. Ya Allah, calm our hearts when they feel overwhelmed. Ya Allah, ease the weight of our thoughts when they become too heavy. Ya Allah, remove our worries, the ones we speak of and the ones we keep hidden. Ya Allah, replace our overthinking with trust, and our fear with peace. Ya Allah, guide our hearts back to you every time we feel lost within ourselves. Ya Allah, grant us a that finds rest in your remembrance, no matter what we face. You are not alone in what you are feeling. Allah hears every silent, every unspoken thought, every tear that never falls. And even when your mind feels like it is racing, His mercy is always near, surrounding you in ways you may not even realize. If your mind is tired, give your heart back to Allah. Let that be your return. Every time you feel overwhelmed, come back to this. Not to your thoughts, not to your fears, but to Him. And if something in this reminder reached your heart, do not ignore that feeling. Sometimes a message comes exactly when you need it most. Hold on to it, reflect on it, let it stay with you beyond this moment. If this reminder touched your heart, don't scroll away. Share it with someone who might be silently struggling. Like it, so it can reach more hearts. And subscribe, so you can continue to receive reminders that bring peace, clarity, and connection back into your life. May Allah grant you a heart that is calm, a mind that is at ease, and a soul that finds its home in His remembrance.